It's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. I'm on the webcam again, as you can see, because it's Christmas and it's just easier that way. So let's get started with the first question, which comes from John Doe Schmo, who says, "Hey Steve, did you ever plan on doing an Atheist Reads episode or two on Islamic apologetics books, or did I just dream it? Perhaps I'm confusing it with the plans the Bible Reloaded guys have for doing the Quran Reloaded." You probably have me confused with the Bible Reloaded guys, but then again, people confuse us all the time, especially me and Jake, because we're both bearded. And that's really all you need to be confused. If you have a beard and another fella has a beard, you're practically twins. That's just the way it works. Not Hugo, though. Hugo still has this adorable little baby face. But anyway, no, they're going to do the Quran Reloaded at some point, which I'm sure is going to be great. I have never said that I'm going to do an Islamic apologetics book for an Atheist Reads. I have said several times that I would like to, if I could find an appropriate book, which so far I have not been able to find. Apologetics from the Islamic point of view, as far as I can tell, just does not seem to exist, at least not to the same level of popularity as it does in Christianity. Now, having said that, the first book of the next cycle of an Atheist Read series will have to do with Islam. It will be an examination of the Islamic faith from the perspective of a Christian apologist, it'll be different than any other book that I've done in the past, but it will focus on me as an atheist critiquing a Christian critique of Islam. So that'll be very interesting, and I hope it turns out as well as I hope it will. But that series starts the first week of January, so coming up real soon now. But yeah, if I could find an appropriate book that is an Islamic apologetics book, I would love to do an Atheist Reads about that. But so far, the book that I have found to do the first Atheist Read series of the new year is the closest I have come to something dealing with Islam in a way that I think would be compatible with an Atheist Reads format. So if anybody knows of any Islamically centered apologetics books, like the Muslim version of something like, The Case for Christ or one of the other Christian apologetics books that I have reviewed in the past, please send it along, because I would certainly be open to doing it. Kathawar Hawi, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name, as I suspect I am. "Hey Steve, I was a massive WWE fan all the way back in before the Attitude Era and up until a few years ago. I just felt that they are spoon-feeding me the most boring person ever, John Cena. What are your views on the WWE becoming PG? I loved all the adult themes, the fact that the match seemed to have higher stakes." We're not doing the Wrestling with Wrestling show this week or next week because of the holiday, so I figure I will lift my rather lazily enforced moratorium on wrestling-related questions, and you had to ask. It's the holidays, whatever. I do not think that the problem with the WWE's current product is the fact that it's PG. I think that's too simple. I know there are a lot of wrestling fans who are very nostalgic for the Attitude Era, for the days of Steve Austin and The Rock and Degeneration X and all of that, and they think that one way to fix the current product to make it more exciting is to go back to that sort of risque, adult-themed presentation. And to me, that was never the reason that the Attitude Era was so successful. I mean, they did do those things to get shock value, to get people to tune in just to see, oh my God, what are they going to do next? And that certainly did help. But in terms of the quality of the product, to me as a wrestling fan, really had nothing to do with that. And I think with the level of talent that they have on the roster right now, including Cena, who is not always booked to play to his strengths and is not always presented in the best possible way, but is a good talker and is a hell of a worker. I mean, John Cena, I have not a single bad thing to say about John Cena as a wrestler, as an entertainer, as a person, as far as I know. It's just the way he's presented that makes him seem dull and vanilla and not very interesting. And I don't think you solve that by going back to the sort of adult themes that they very clumsily and in a very juvenile way presented during the Attitude Era. I think you go back to just telling very simple stories. Wrestling is not a high art form. Wrestling is a very low art form, and it thrives on very simple stories, very simple setups and payoffs. You have a conflict between a good guy and a bad guy, And then when the conflict is resolved, one of them has won the conflict and one of them has lost the conflict, and then they both move on to other things. That's very simple A to B storytelling. And if it's done properly, and if it's executed with enough skill, it can be immensely satisfying if you are a fan of that sort of thing, as I am. And that's what I think they need to get back to. That's what they've lost sight of. It's not the Attitude Era, Crash TV, Howard Stern show, Jerry Springer show type stuff that is costing them viewers and interest in the product. It's the fact that they no longer write it with an eye to the basics, to the fundamentals of storytelling. That's what I think they need to get back to. Patrick Dodds, Steve, what are your favorite Christmas holiday specials? Mine are the Twilight Zone episode, Night of the Meek, and John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together. Don't judge me. How about you? P.S. Have a Merry Christmas. You have a Merry Christmas too, Patrick. Thank you for your question. I think my tastes in Christmas specials is sort of evenly divided between really common, mainstream, middle-of-the-road stuff and then kind of off-kilter, strange, idiosyncratic stuff. Like, I love most of the specials that are popular in the mainstream, like the Grinch and Charlie Brown Christmas and Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Like, I love all of those old sort of stop-motion Rankin Bass specials from the 60s and the 70s. And I also love the Blue Carbuncle episode of Sherlock Holmes, and I have two versions of it. I have the probably the more well-known Jeremy Brett version from the Granada series, the Sherlock Holmes series from the 80s, and then I also have the episode from the 60s from the BBC Sherlock Holmes series where Holmes was played by Peter Cushing. The Blue Carbuncle was the Christmas-themed Sherlock Holmes story, and I love to read the story, and I also love to watch those TV adaptations of it. So I would throw that very high on the list. I also really like the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special because it shows Skeletor being overcome by the Christmas spirit against his will. There's that amazing, hilarious scene where he says, "But I don't want to be nice. I want to be evil." I mean, how do you get any better than that? So there are some other, There are Christmas-themed episodes of a lot of my favorite old TV shows that I like to watch around this time of year. I love to watch the Christmas episode of Nowhere Man, which is just a real heartbreaker. I love to watch the Christmas episode of Perfect Strangers, which is as corny and sappy as you could possibly imagine. And yet I still adore it. So those are some Christmas specials and some Christmas-themed TV episodes that I really like. I also love to listen to the Patrick Stewart audiobook version of A Christmas Carol, but I think I'll mention that a little bit more in an upcoming question. So let's just move on, shall we? John M. Please don't lynch me, but I've never really watched Star Wars. I maybe saw Return of the Jedi or something as a kid, but I don't remember much. With all the recent hype, I think I'm ready to delve in. My question is, should I watch in chronological order, or would it make sense to start with the prequels? Sincerely, current Steve Shives fan, potential Star Wars fan. John, you have to understand that the person to whom you are addressing this question is something of a Star Wars curmudgeon. I have no love for the prequels. I don't consider the prequels particularly necessary to the overall enjoyment of Star Wars. So if you're just asking me for my personal opinion, I would advise you to skip the prequels altogether. There's no reason to watch them. They're not good movies. They don't really add anything to the Star Wars saga. In fact, if you consider it as a whole, as an entire story, I think the prequels actually detract from the overall story quite a bit. But if you do want to watch the prequels, I would recommend watching the movies in production order. I would start with Star Wars, aka A New Hope. I would go from there to The Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi, and then I would watch the prequels. From Return of the Jedi, I would then go and watch Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I think that's the way that makes the most sense to watch them. I think the prequels, because they are prequels and they were produced after the original trilogy, they rely, I think, on a lot of familiarity. There are things in the prequels that if you go into them not having seen the original trilogy, you might not catch, you might not appreciate. I mean, I think you'll be able to follow them. You won't be lost or anything. But it's important, I think, to recognize that the prequels are prequels. They were made after the original trilogy. So I would watch the original trilogy first, and then if you want to watch the prequels, then watch the prequels. And then I'll beat my microphone with my hand some more. And then watch the new movie. Or, just watch the new movie. You don't really need to have a great deal of Star Wars foreknowledge to enjoy to enjoy the Force Awakens, because even if you're not knowledgeable about Star Wars and the events of the past films and who the characters are from the past films, it's still just a really great, fun adventure movie, and I think you'll enjoy it no matter what. But if you do want to delve into Star Wars, I would just start with the original. Start with Star Wars. Makes sense to me. Mitch searches, hey Steve, I've noticed that you get kind of a lot of dislikes on a lot of your videos. I understand that you talk about a lot of controversial / hot topics, but you seem to be attracting almost as many people with dissenting opinions as people who agree with you, which is, at least in my experience, unusual. I know I generally choose to watch YouTubers whose content I actually enjoy. Anyway, what would you say that the reason for this kind of split in your like-dislike counter is, and does it ever bother or discourage you? The reason for the high amount of dislikes that I get on certain videos is that I speak up strongly and unapologetically in support of feminism. And I'm comfortable giving you that direct and simple of an explanation because I did not encounter that phenomenon at all until I started speaking up strongly and unapologetically in support of feminism. That's it. There is a very loud, very angry, very self-centered and defensive and thin-skinned contingent among the YouTube atheist community of people who are incredibly antagonistic toward feminism, who display some very sexist, misogynistic attitudes toward women in general and toward feminism in particular. And I have spoken out against that. I don't like that. I think that's an embarrassment to our movement in general, to the atheist movement in general, to the atheist community in general. I'm not happy about it. I don't wish to be counted among those people who are the anti-feminist contingent of atheism. I'm just not one of those. And I don't agree with them. I don't want to be their friends. I don't like them. And I think they are, in the long run, a detriment to the efforts to create more acceptance for atheists in society and to encourage people to join the atheist community and to take part in the atheist community. I just don't think that it's good for us as a community, for those people with those attitudes toward women and toward feminism to be in many ways the dominant voice with which we speak, at least on YouTube. And people don't like that. People who are of that contingent, who are of that mindset, who are fans of people like that, who have big YouTube channels, they don't like that. As I said, they're very thin-skinned, they're very defensive. They do not have the attitude that you have, which is you tend to like to watch the YouTube videos of people that you like. They tend to do a lot of hate watching, I think. There are people who claim to hate my guts and to not respect me at all, and yet they watch every video that I do. There are some of them probably watching this right now, and I don't understand that. There are lots of YouTubers that I can't stand, and I hardly ever watch their videos because I've just got other shit to do. I've just got better shit to do than to watch videos from someone that I hate or don't respect or whatever. I don't understand that. But yeah, does it ever bother me or discourage me? I mean, it bothers me in the big picture because, as I said, I think these sorts of people and these sorts of attitudes reflect poorly on the community as a whole. And the atheist community is important to me. It matters to me. I want people to feel as though if they are an atheist, that they can find a home here. They can find, support here among their fellow atheists. And I don't like the face of the community, or one of the most prominent faces of the community, being so angry and condescending and anti-woman and anti-social justice in general. It bothers me in the big picture, but it doesn't discourage me. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It reminds me of how important it is to provide an alternative to the sorts of YouTube channels that propagate that angry anti-feminist voice within the atheist community. It reminds me that it's even more important than I might have otherwise thought it was to put my content out there and to do my best to show that you can be an atheist and be a strong atheist and an unapologetic, proud atheist, and also not be a misogynistic douchebag. And I hope that I can accomplish that with my content. I try to do that. And I hope I can encourage other people of a similar mindset to do that as well. So no, it doesn't discourage me at all. Quite the opposite. I find it very encouraging and very motivating. Ted Appelt. Hey, Steve, I was wondering what you think of the words gay and straight. I'm okay with gay, but am uncomfortable with straight because it implies that the opposite is crooked or bent. This isn't true of gays. They're simply born the way they are born, and this happens to be a very natural thing. All mammal species have a significant gay population. Humans are no exception. Do you have a better word for straight? This was brought up to me just recently, a few months ago, by my friend Goth at Funk, who is now also the moderator of the new version of the Breakfast Club channel, which you guys should all be watching if you're not watching the Breakfast Club. But yeah, Goth at Funk, I can't remember if we were having if we were talking about it in private message or if he left a comment on a video of mine or what, but he brought up this exact same point, that the term straight is problematic. Because, yeah, it implies, well, if you're straight, if you're a heterosexual and you're straight, then a homosexual is crooked, bent. I mean, bent is a derogatory term for a gay person. So it's like, if you use one, are you endorsing the other? And I had never really thought of it like that. And now that I've had that brought up to me, and not just Got That Funk, but you and your question as well, Ted, I think it's a valid point. I think it's worth thinking about. If we're going to refer to ourselves as heterosexuals, as straight, what are we implying about people who aren't? I think it's an interesting point. I think it's worth considering. And I've actually tried to limit my use of the term. It's sort of, you have to unlearn things, you know. I can't just stop using the term because I've used it my whole life. But I am working on not using the term straight to refer to a hetero person, and that would be the term I would rather use. I think if you want to know what's a better word for straight, hetero, I think is a good one. A shortened version of heterosexual. I would try to use that, hetero. I suppose you could run into trouble with that because then someone could always pipe up and say, well, if you're going to call straight people hetero, then why can't you call gay people homos? Okay, fine. It's never going to be perfect. I understand. Homo has become, a derogatory term for a gay person. So if we call straight people hetero, aren't we inviting that? I get it. It's never going to be perfect. But if you are looking for an alternative term to refer to a heterosexual person other than straight, because it troubles you for the reasons you've brought up, I would suggest hetero. And hetero is the term that I am sort of slowly trying to encourage myself to use instead. I mean, yeah, it takes time, It's not something that just dawns on you like a crash of thunder. I'm so sorry. The segues are just bad. They're just bad, aren't they? Forced and not even really funny. Just anyway. Hey, guess what? It's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
J. Dodify. Steve, sorry to put this on a you had to ask, but what about 5 stupid things about Mother Teresa? She now officially performs miracles, as well as having a cult of suffering, allowing money laundering, and rubbing shoulders with brutal dictators. Yeah, that's a great idea. I believe she is going to officially be canonized. I think I read somewhere that it was going to happen actually in September, the official canonization ceremony. So I would not be shocked if 5 stupid things about Mother Teresa were to drop around that time frame. Ahoyerno, lightning round. Belgium. What comes to mind? Waffles, chocolate, and Stella Artois, also known as wife beater, I am told. Francois Lacombe, in the spirit of the season, what is your favorite, if any, version of Dickens's A Christmas Carol? This is what I was talking about earlier when I said I might bring it back up again. My favorite version of Dickens's A Christmas Carol, other than the book itself, is the Patrick Stewart audiobook version, which is based on Patrick Stewart's one-man show of A Christmas Carol, that audiobook featuring Patrick Stewart performing the book, doing the different characters and different voices. Is just fantastic. In terms of films, my favorite would be the Alastair Sim version from 1955, I think. Yeah, those are my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol. Joanna Roberts. So do you like Leonard Cohen? If so, what's your favorite cover of one of his songs? There are so many awesome covers. See, this goes back to how vanilla and middle of the road my taste is most of the time, because I have to say it's the Jeff Buckley version of Hallelujah, which I'm pretty sure everybody says, because that's of all the many covers, like just multitudes of Leonard Cohen covers, many of which are really, really excellent, because Cohen is a fantastic songwriter in addition to being a great, very distinctive singer. But yeah, the Jeff Buckley Hallelujah, I think is what I have to say. It's just such a beautiful song, a beautiful cover of a beautiful song. Umar Sories, hey Steve, lightning round question. Has it ever occurred to anyone that in Murder, She Wrote, everywhere Jessica goes, someone dies? Could it be she's secretly a serial killer setting up a lot of other people for her crimes? Just saying. Everywhere she goes, someone drops dead, and no one ever looks at the kind old lady. Yeah, you're right. Apparently, this is like a common fantasy among Murder, She Wrote fans, because someone commented, I think my friend Sabrina, who leaves comments and questions on here quite a bit, she brought this up, and someone else brought it up too 2 weeks ago when I first started talking about Murder, She Wrote. They were saying, anybody else ever think that maybe Jessica's the one who's actually committing these crimes? This is apparently a very common fantasy among Murder, She Wrote fans, and I've had that thought myself. So it's nice to know that we're all pretty much equally sick when it comes to our deranged fan theories about Murder, She Wrote. We all pretty much have decided quietly to ourselves that Jessica killed all those people. Vitamin W. Ever been overseas? Ever plan to? No, I have never been overseas. I don't know if I don't specifically plan to. I don't have any plans at the moment, but I would love to go. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to visit Europe. I actually now, thanks to the YouTube channel, I have friends in the UK. Which if I ever make it over there, I'd love to visit with them, So yeah, I would like to go at some point. I don't know when. I know people in Australia now. I'd love to go visit my friends in Australia, but no plans to at the moment. But yes, I would very much love to at some point. Amanda Sylvester. Steve, will you be attending the Reason Rally in DC in 2016? Have you attended in the past? I'm thinking of going for the first time next year, and I'd like to get a sense of what it's like. Yes, I am going to the Reason Rally next year. I can't wait. I went to the first one 4 years ago, and it was an amazing experience. I had a great time. I loved it. I'm really looking forward to the next one in 2016. I don't know what I can give you in terms of advice other than prepare for there to be a ton of people. There was a huge crowd there last time. I expect the crowd this time will be even bigger. And if you're coming in from out of town, I would recommend parking at a metro station outside of DC and taking the train in, taking the metro. You rely on the metro to get around because it's a pretty good form of public transportation, and that way you don't have to fight for parking spots or fight with DC traffic, which I'm sure is going to be a nightmare while the Reason Rally is in town. But that's what I would say. Park at Shady Grove Metro Station and take the train into town and have a good time. And if you see me there, say hi. Brian Gibson, are you actually fed up with the lightning round shtick, or are the deprecating comments about it just part of the bit? Just part of the bit. I'm not really fed up with it. If I really didn't want to do it, I just would stop doing it because, it's my video. No, I actually like the lightning round. I think and sometimes my ambivalence toward the lightning round gimmick or toward the segues into it, at least, I think can work as sort of anti-comedy. But no, if I really was sick of it, I just would stop doing it. Think skeptically, lightning round. What's in your stocking? Also, let's go to the Air and Space Museum before January 1st, Mr. Lazy Pants. Nothing is in my stocking. It's just an empty stocking, purely there for show. And why don't we go see Star Wars instead? Hey, that's it for the lightning round, everybody. Before I get out of here, I want to give a shout out to a really awesome channel. This is going to be, because this is this goes up on Christmas Day. This will be the last You Had to Ask of 2015. So this is my final shout out of 2015. And just as when I shouted out my pal Captain Andy recently, this one is another one that I feel is long overdue. The shout out this week goes to Carazelaya. Cara has a really awesome YouTube channel. It's a fun channel, really reflective of her interests and her personality. She is an atheist, she is a feminist, but her content doesn't really lean super heavy into either of those areas. She talks about books, she talks about movies, she talks about just whatever's on her mind. She has a series where she reads and sort of comments as she's reading on 50 Shades of Grey, which is pretty funny. And she's also doing something similar now with this incredibly odd Christian fanfic Harry Potter rewrite called Hogwarts School of Prayer and Miracles, which some of you may be familiar with. It's so bizarre. And she has a video series that she's been doing for the last little while where she reads from a chapter of that fanfic and comments on it as she reads. And it's really funny because the fanfic by itself is just so weird. People read it and think, is this real? Is this supposed to be a parody or something? Because it's, you know, it's kind of out there. So I highly recommend Carazelaya. Check out her YouTube channel. She also has, she's on Twitter. She has a really nice and growing Twitter following. She's a really fun person, a really cool person, someone you should be paying attention and someone you should be getting to know because I really think she's great. So there you go. There's the shout out, the final shout out of 2015. I also want to tell you for the last time in 2015, that you can listen to the Lemme Listen podcasts. These are podcasts that are created by the brilliantly, I will pronounce it properly, the brilliantly deranged mind of my good pal Jason Harding, the puppet master of Opinionville here on YouTube. He produces 3 awesome podcasts, part of the Lemme Listen family. There is Lemme Finish, which he co-hosts with Finite Atticus. There is the improv comedy podcast, American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, which is currently on hiatus in preparation for its 2nd season, which will begin next year. So if you haven't listened to it, you can go back and listen to all of the episodes from season 1 of American Monsters. And there is Late Seating, which is the movie review podcast that Jason hosts with me. And it's one of my very favorite things that I do now. I love doing this podcast with Jason. We take notable films, significant films that are at least 10 years old, and we go back, we rewatch them, we review them, we summarize the plot for you and make fun of it as we go along, and we decide whether we think that these movies deserve the reputation that they have. It's a really fun show. We have a great time doing it. And our new episode that goes up today, the same day that this video is published, Christmas Day, is a review of a modern day classic Christmas movie. In fact, it is A Christmas Story. So go to LemmeListenPodcasts.com and you can listen to our new Late Seating review of A Christmas Story. And you can also listen to a special bonus episode that we recorded of Star Wars The Force Awakens. We just recorded a quick, maybe 20-25 minute review of the new Star Wars movie just to share our thoughts on it, to talk about it. It's very full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't listen to it yet if you don't want to have the movie spoiled for you, but you can listen to our quick and dirty Late Seating-esque review of Star Wars The Force Awakens as well. You can listen to that and all of the Lemme Listen podcasts, again, at LemmeListenPodcasts.com. That's it for me, everybody. I'm out of here. Please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. You can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. And I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So until the next video, take care. Merry Christmas. And Happy New Year, everybody. Well, maybe just one more thing before I go. I hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks again for watching. Happy holidays.